Welcome back to a particularly atmospheric episode of Light the Fuse. Charles, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm here in the dark. It's very stormy here today while we're recording. It's like a monsoon out there. It's a flood warning, and my power is out, and so we're doing this in a different. Look, we don't stop. Nothing can stop us.
No way.
The power can be out. We still record this show, Drew. Nothing stops us.
Never. We take our cues from Tom Cruise. We will never stop. Yeah.
So the power is out, and we're doing this over. I've got just enough power in my laptop to record this intro. It's like a fuse, it's like Mission Impossible here. We're going to get it done just in time, and we're talking on the phone while to do this. It doesn't matter out there. All you have to know is that we don't stop, just like Gyllenhaal in Ambulance. We don't stop.
That's right. And we're back with the second part of our Maricel interview, which I think we were both really just charmed by her and all of her amazing stories. And She lets it loose this time. We get some good stories.
Oh, yeah. It's great. And she also at one point brings up an animatic, and she shows it to us. She did send it to us, so along with a couple of storyboards. So they'll be in our show notes for this episode on our website. So if you go to LightTheFusePodcast.com, go to the episode guide and go to this episode, then you can look at the images that we look at with her when she talks about it in the episode.
Wow, that is really exciting.
Hey, look, we're looking out for everybody out there.
It
could be a little bit boring. You hear us be like, "Oh wow, ooh, this looks cool," but now you can look at it at the same time as us and also think, "Ooh, wow, that does look cool."
It's true. Truly interactive. We love it. Before we get into it, Charles, I got to do my favorite part of the show. So
of course,
I'm just going to go ahead and do it. We got to give a shout out to Jeremy Dillon and his podcast, My Favorite Album. Also want to give a shout out to John B., Elvis Ripley, and Suchet. And you know what else, Charles? I'm going to tell everybody, if they want their name read, you have to become the tippity top. What's the tier called, Charles?
Well, we do it by all the middle management bosses. So I think it's IMF secretary is the big head honcho, of course.
So if you want to do that, sign up at our Patreon, patreon.com/LightTheFuse. And we'll tell you more about the Patreon when we come back. But I just wanted to let people know that they could have their name read before an interview with somebody's best caterer or grip or whoever that we're going to be talking about on the show. You can get your name read before them if you sign up to that higher tier. So just putting it out there, Charles. I'm trying
that was so kind of you to do that, Drew. Wow.
That's just what I'm trying to
You're looking out for the people, and I appreciate that.
Well, let's get into this interview, Charles. I feel like I can see your power draining down, and then we'll be back afterwards to talk about it.
Well, usually you can see me. We're looking at each other through Zoom, but I'm just in the darkness, and you can't see me.
I can't see you. Video off for power reasons. But like Charles said, we're doing it all for you. We're making it work, and we'll be back. As Charles mentioned, you did have 6 months shaved off your post-production time.
Yeah.
So what was that like? I mean, you shrugged for the people at home. She is shrugging. Does this happen a lot? I mean, how did that impact you and your workflow? If you've plotted everything out to the most minute detail, and then they say, 6 months gone, what does that mean for you? I mean, I'm besides these visual effects artists working all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And it's not trivial for any studio to pull up a date or extend a date or keep it open-ended. Because without those sort of targets, it can continue to spin. And, the filmmakers won't necessarily commit to, oh yeah, that's the idea. We'll constantly explore and do tests until they know really what they want. And that's the danger. But with a 6 month reduction, it's all about being clear about what you need. So it's being in tighter communication with the editor and Chris in this case about what they wanted. And then, hurry up, make up your mind. We can always change it down the road, but I need to be able to, the stuff that has the longest lead time is the underwater work because it's just full CG. The practical stuff, I can wait. We all know how to do that. It's just commit to the plate. We can get that tracked. We can put it inside the world. We can clean it up. So we're dependent upon them being happy, along with the studio doing, previews or showing specific cuts, and then changing their minds about, that ending should be at the front. Okay, all right, 30 shots gone,
Right.
25 new shots of which we didn't know anything about, so it's those kinds of, and then, well, in order to do that, can we send a helicopter unit out to do this? So I don't have to build blah, blah, blah satellite dish that they're hanging on. Is there a way creatively that we can get the same thing just for the actor to interact? The rest that can be CG based upon this photo, but you sort of want to be in the same taste of your original plates and practical stuff, so that it doesn't pop within your movie. So you're always trying to ground it in photoreal environments, true lighting. Robert Elswit, the DP, great DP who always, who has a strong background in visual effects. He did Star Wars, he did Poltergeist, all of these. So, he really helped us a lot. And that's more than anything, if you shoot, your plates correctly for visual effects that have enough range and what we can do, then it actually takes us, less time, as opposed to fixing bad photography. Or it was lit for daytime. Can you guys relight it for night? We can, but I can't guarantee that it's going to look exactly as you envision. So, it's all of those, just shoot it right, as you want it to be, so that we don't necessarily have to do as much surgery to it, and make it a seamless, cinematic experience. So
I remember Elswit. We spoke with Elswit a few years ago now, but he told us about how he applied some of the Star Wars approach of shooting the spaceships on the original Star Wars movies. Of I forget what it's called, transferred motion or something like that.
Yes, yes.
You
transferred motion inside the Torus.
Yeah.
Because we only had a small tank. Leavesden. It's not small, but it was small for what we wanted to have a, Tom, wide enough lens to have him around the Torus and then being sucked in, so.
Right.
In order to do that, the camera has to move at the same time as the subject. So you get a sense of increased motion. So, it's when we apply that technique now to any number of, water sequences, or, extending plates when you need more time, it's those kinds of visual tricks that sort of help you. And, at the time we didn't know if it was going to work, but ultimately, with the Torus it did. It was great.
So in the Torus, you guys were primarily building that arm, right? The robotic arm. And then you were talking about water effects. So was there water effects interacting with that arm, which you needed? Or, well, I guess what went into that Torus?
That was completely CG. It was a CG mechanical arm. That was just a rig to drag the actors around.
Oh.
And or a camera. So you had this. You had like one arm. I wonder if I have it. I don't want to. Yeah.
You could send it to us later if you want.
Yeah. No. I have it someplace. Because I often have to show it when I talk about. Well, if you want that kind of a move, sure, let's talk to the DP, and what we're talking about is transferred motion. So, right. What does that mean? But in any case, I don't want to distract you, but I'll try to find it.
But there was no CG Tom in that water, right?
No, it was real Tom.
Okay.
There was a transition when he goes out.
Yes. Okay.
And so there was, I think if anything, it was combining 2 takes as he was going around. That was the, and just to make sure that did not bump in the transition between the 2 takes in one continuous move. It was great. It took us a long time, both CG, previs, shooting it, and then tech viz, which is, the roadmap for all the technicians to understand this is a 35. You have to be 20 feet from the subject and to achieve this. So, the grip and electrics would use this as, again, the roadmap to set up the prep, and also, I need an arm that's this long. I need this much track to get this. The track itself, it has to have, enough track to get up to speed. And then, so we would do all of that math with little simpler animatics, turn that over to them, and then, they would see if it works. We'd do some tests underwater, and then, Bob's your uncle.
Well, I think we've heard, Charles, haven't we, that there was a much larger third act set piece being planned.
Right, and then there was a shutdown over Christmas, right, where they had to kind of rethink. They sort of looked at Apollo 13 style, looked at what they have here in terms of resources and how much time they have, and then they figured out what their climax was going to be.
Yeah, it was...
what was that sequence? I mean, did you work on it?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I have to go back and look at the script. I mean, honestly,
we always tell people that we have to put them through his hypnosis to recall.
Because there's some things that you just don't.
Maybe you don't want to remember. Oh my God.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, let me see if I can find the Torus, because maybe I can share it with you. It's the pipeline. Oh, here. Can I share?
Let me see how I can make.
Yeah, is it? And if it's okay with you, if you're allowed to, can we show it include this in our show notes and show the people, our listeners, or is that not allowed?
The movie is out.
All right. Well, yeah, if you can email it to us as well.
You see this?
Okay.
Ooh.
So we're now looking at...
This is some of the concept of the dive positions.
So this is Ethan kind of diving downward.
Yeah. As he's...
holding a light. And we're gonna get these on our website. Hopefully Maricel will share these with us,
sure.
so we can do that so everybody can see what we're looking at. We're looking at some storyboards now of
his leap from up top going down to the bottom.
Okay, this is cool. Interesting.
And so the next step for us here was we made this an animatic, and then it became previs, and then it defined what it is that we were going to build asset-wise.
Are these Mark Bristol storyboards? Or was he only on Fallout?
I think he was. I don't know if because there were a few folks.
Interesting.
Okay, so this is the Torus. His point of view jumping down through the tubes. Looks like Avatar, going through.
So there's a note here that on this one that says, Chris, perhaps the last section of pipe is very small, and Ethan goes from head first into feet first. So that's a note, I assume, from a Corey. Who is writing that note to him?
Yeah.
Who's writing that note to him though? Is that you? Is that Vickery, or is that?
No, he wasn't. David Vickery wasn't there yet for this.
Okay.
He came in toward the end. I can't recall. I think this was Grady Kofer who was guiding this portion. It was fully designed by that point, and it was just a previs that they did. Let me see if I could find anything else. I don't think so. Let me see if I could go back to you guys.
It's okay. Well, so you talked before about, crews really wanting to go with practical effects and then only going to VFX, if absolutely necessary. But even in the case of something like the Airbus, the opening sequence of Rogue Nation, he's on the actual plane, but there's so many wires that have to be removed, and not only that, but there also wasn't it kind of an empty airfield, and you there with
Yes.
VFX adding all these buildings and things in the background.
Yes.
So there's always so many invisible VFX that even though we're saying, oh yes, it's all practical, it's like, yeah, the stunt was practical, but there's so many VFX that go into everything along those lines.
Yes. That's true. But the attitude of filmmakers a lot of the time is not necessarily to toot the horn of the visual effects treatment.
Yes. But unfortunately, I think that results in some kind of a negative attitude about VFX sometimes that's unfair.
Yeah.
Because there's so much work that goes into so many things. We were thrilled that Top Gun Maverick got nominated for Best VFX because, it's very much talking about how, they were actually in these jets and everything. It's like, yes, they were, but they also had to do a lot of VFX work to remove the real pilots who were in those jets with them.
Yes.
And so it's great to see that work recognized.
Yes.
Was there anything else in Rogue Nation that you can think of that had that kind of secret VFX work that we're not thinking of, that we wouldn't notice?
I can't recall how many shots, but it was enough to keep us fully busy up until the very end. I mean, and that's usually the case. Oh, I didn't even notice that until now, but can we fix it? And you're like, yeah, sure. Okay. But, it's those kinds of things that, you can plan for, like, the Vienna Opera, the Airbus, the Torus, those big set pieces we would, plan meticulously, and also plan the coverage so you can sort of contain whatever it is. But all the other stuff we call, production fixes, which aren't necessarily, you have an allocation, but you don't know what it is until it actually happens, because we all held hands in the production meeting and said, art department is going to do that, you're going to do this, and we're going to place a camera, it's not going to be this wide, so we don't have to replace,
And then everything gets thrown out on the day.
The modern buildings here, and then the last, we didn't plan this correctly, I now want to see this. You're like,
yeah.
Okay. But you also don't, you want to help any filmmaker imagine, and that's, at the end of the day, for me, just grab as much coverage as you can and we'll figure it out.
Right.
But for me, it's like, I just need you to shoot so that we know how it is that you can't achieve it and we can make it better. But if you just want us to create it out of whole cloth, then that is harder because I have nothing to reference it against.
Right.
And to make it look like what you imagine. Because it's hard to pull that information out of any filmmaker, especially those that aren't accustomed to the breadth and techniques that, we use in visual effects, which these days you can do any number of things if you have a deep enough pocket. But, you can't. Everyone agreed to this amount, and you just have to be smart, and plan to have all the building blocks that you need. So if you have to reassemble it, you can.
Right.
So, we scan the cars, we scan the people, we take photographs about the people, we do all of this in advance when we're shooting. We don't really know how we're going to use it. And at the end of the day, oh, you know what? We didn't actually shoot that thing. Did you guys happen to shoot any background so that I can create and write this whole scene inside of here? That's what happened in one of the parties when we were meeting the villains. And no one took any empty plates, but there was a big hole in the scene where we totally forgot to to shoot this, and you're like, oh, too bad. No. So we trolled through all of our stuff, and the beginning and the slate. Is there anything that we can wedge in there? Can we approximate the lighting? Can we match back into that? So we're always making stuff up, but these days I just know we're just going to photograph everything so because I know you're going to ask. And I know you're going to want an insert, but we can't go back to that location. We can't get that beautiful desk that happened to be in, that fortress, that museum, all that kind of stuff. So we're in there, in between takes, and don't throw that away. Can you just, let me take some pictures and whatnot. So we totally document sets now as our operating procedures. And then if you don't, that's when you know that there's going to be something new that they want.
I think we know the shot you're talking about. That was a pain in the ass. And
Yeah.
you tell us if we're right or wrong. Is it a
Okay.
3-shot.
Is it a composite? What is it, Charles?
It's a 3-shot, right? A composite.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's Tom Hollander, Alec Baldwin, and is it Tom or is it?
No. Yeah. It's isn't it Cruz, Baldwin, and Renner? Isn't that who it is?
Oh yeah, Cruz
Yes,
Baldwin,
yes.
and they're staring kind of down at the camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Tom Hollander is on the ground. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Is that the shot?
Yes. Yes.
It looks so weird.
And they didn't have the coverage, and I said, "How can you? You had all the people, you had all the things. This is practical set. What do you mean? What happened?" And the editor, "Hey, did you by any chance take?"
Wow.
Usually the set pieces are running away. All the everything is. Hold on, can I just do it 360 so that I have it for posterity? But they don't. Oh no, we're never going to do it. You're done. You're like, okay.
You did what you could. You
Yeah.
know, listen, it is what it is. We're the only nerds that ever noticed, I'm sure.
Yeah, when you've seen the movie 100 times, then you can start to see the seams. But I think it definitely worked. You did a great job. So.
I know we're running out of time. Charles and I wanted to ask you about one of your previous movies, which we find very fascinating, which is Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow.
Oh my God.
That was a more visceral reaction than I was expecting.
That was an experience where, I was in the bullpen of many coordinators. We had come in where this is a show that was shot in 20 days, 25 days. And their mission was to be able to do this without awarding the work, and they committed to doing it with art house. They built their own internal team. We were in Van Nuys in a warehouse, probably 300 artists, from 3 different campuses, of which they trained internally. And then it was a negative pickup from Paramount. And at that time, they made the deal, and they only had 100 shots done of like 1,600. I don't know. So when they got the negative pickup, that's when they asked for help. So I went in there among many others, and we hired on 12, I think, vendors to get to the delivery date. But they had a special recipe of doing their compositing. So to take that body of work and techniques and then transport it to 14 other vendors was the challenge, and in a very shortened amount of time. And we were in Van Nuys in a warehouse, a review room that was the size of a closet, doing reviews probably, 14, 16 hours a day until it was done. It was, working 6-7 days a week in order to achieve.
But you were breaking new ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty revolutionary movie.
It was. And, Kerry Conran, right? And his brother, who was a production designer. So.
Did you ever work on his John Carter at all?
No, I did not.
Okay.
But I heard about, that also was another show that was challenging for many.
Yeah, what happened to him?
So many characters, so many.
Yeah.
It was like, a plethora of, what am I looking at? What am I?
Do we know what happened to him? Where is he?
No, I don't know. We'll have to look him up.
Maybe he's still in Van Nuys. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't really have a question, but I just have a compliment that I wanted to give. Just I one of my favorite, a very memorable movie moment for me when I was in college was I think it was at the Chinese theater opening night, seeing X-Men 2. That opening sequence with Nightcrawler going through the White House, that VFX and that it was just mind blowing, and the crowd was just going nuts, and it was just such an amazing experience. Those VFX, wow.
Yeah.
Bravo.
That was fun. That was fun. That's when we were still working in film. And we would do dailies. And, this before you would frame through and really study the effects, we would actually go into the screening room and like, was that it? Rewind, please. Okay, next.
Wow.
And trying to bring Brian and the entourage, because, we couldn't always have access to a screening room. So we would be doing it all manner of going in at 6 o'clock in the morning, it was just also one of those experiences that was, the making of the movie was just as rigorous.
I hope he was nice to you.
As the visual effects. Yeah, he was. That's,
Okay,
I continued to work with him on, again, Valkyrie and
Superman. Yeah.
And that's where I met Chris.
And then you were there for the first Avatar with Cameron. Was he okay to work with, hopefully?
Yeah, no, he was. But I came in for the last 14 months.
Oh, just the last 14 months.
Yes. It's the same kind of situation. The movie at the time was 6.5 hours.
What?
Weta said no, we can't work on that much. We can only afford to work on 2 hours.
Did you want them to do the visual effects for the 6 hour?
Yeah, he didn't want to commit to any changes until he knew what he was going to get. So we had to take out all of those, reassign it, and then 12 other vendors, with Weta, and then, all the non-Avatar stuff and stereo. So it was training all of these new vendors, and then there was a specific timeline. It's like, all of those shots that were turned over from the internal Lightstorm artists, virtual art department, previs team, those shots went originally to Weta. They renamed it, and then when it came back, when we reassigned it, it wasn't named the same. So, it was it was this whole thing of like remapping and, figuring out the secret sauce and, all of these kinds of things. It was just...
Well, if 12 vendors were necessary to bring 2.5 hours in, how did he think that Weta was going to bring 6 hours of stuff together?
That's why we brought in 12.
But they couldn't even do 6 hours of stuff, probably,
yes.
right? Like, okay,
yes.
Okay. Well, that's behind you.
Yeah, I survived, and that too was a hair-raising experience. It was just tough. You walk in there, and it was immediately 14-hour days, 7 days a week.
Wow.
So it's not for the you you just have to walk in and, all right, I'm just going to do this. Right.
Well, we thank you so much for being here. I think we both learned a lot, which we don't always say because we've talked to so many people, but this was amazing. Do you have anything to pitch? You've got Ripley coming out on TBD streaming service sometime in the next year or so, I would imagine.
As soon as Showtime figures out, what where their name is. Yeah. Paramount Plus, Showtime plus.
Right.
That's a new adaptation of Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah. Streamers is a whole different ball game because it's all about, wait and then hurry up. In features, it's hurry up and wait.
Right.
So these guys don't know or won't give you feedback, and then hurry up, we figured it out. And you're like, God, where were you guys 6 months ago when you could have told us that and it would have been cheaper,
right.
Whatever. Yeah. Or that you didn't like that scene or whatever.
Can we say is this a period piece? Are you going
Yes.
back to the 60s? Okay, cool. That's very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve Zamlian is writing, directing. He did The Night Of.
That's
Cool.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a really great piece. But I think in this streaming world, they don't know what it is yet and how to market it. And I could say that for all of these streamers that don't necessarily have a take, and an identity.
Yeah.
So
it's a little messy.
It's
out there.
hard.
Yeah.
It's now, a different kind of business that we're in.
Yeah.
So
Have you been able to keep up with the Mission Impossible series? We always ask everybody to rank the movies. So if you've watched the other movies, we'd have to ask you if you have.
I really like Fallout.
Awesome.
No objections here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. we're with you. We really like that one too.
I mean, that was a really great ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Amazing.
so.
All right. Well, that's good enough for us. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And please keep in touch.
Well, thank you for, for reaching out and being so tenacious.
Of course. We'll be bothering you now for the next 2 years about a timeshare opportunity. Charles has, I'm kidding. No, but please keep in touch. And thank you so much for coming on.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Welcome back. Charles, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's raining like crazy outside, but I'm loving the sound of it. I don't know if people can hear it in my microphone because it's raining so loud here. You might be able to, but this interview with Maricel was just so awesome. Hearing her talk about the differences between VFX for the big set pieces, and then talking about quote unquote production fixes. I thought that was really fascinating to hear about that whole process. And she says, we all held hands at the production meeting as they talked about how different departments would take care of certain things. But in the end, as always, like stuff just gets changed on the day, and then you're adding stuff, VFX shots, and things have to be fixed, and it just happens. And it's like, that people while you're shooting, like, oh, well, we'll fix it in post, and it's like, how often does that get, it was not planned for VFX to cover that. And then in the end, of course, they have to. And there's just always so much more work than they planned for.
We feel for the VFX community. I feel like we are allies of the VFX community.
Yes, I would like to think so. I hope that they feel that from us because we love them. They do such amazing work. It's such underappreciated work, so much invisible work people don't see. I mean, even the little movies that I've made in the last 8 or 9 years or whatever, like we were using VFX for everything. Removing shadows, removing, boom mics,
right.
You're doing split screens to combine performance takes that are the best, or, there's just so much invisible work that you do it's amazing the stuff they do.
What about the fact that James Cameron wanted them to do all the effects for the 6-hour cut of Avatar?
My God. I wanted to bring that. Like, it's amazing to hear about her work on the first Avatar. Did I hear that correctly? That Cameron wanted Weta to do the VFX for the 6.5-hour version before he decided what he wanted to cut from the movie. Did she say that? Is that real?
That sounds like it, and she sounded particularly exasperated by that. So yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
Wow.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean that's wow. Just again, we feel you, VFX community. You guys, we feel you. You're out there doing a lot of work, and I hope we appreciate it. And I know there are more people who are becoming more aware of it now, and I think they're appreciative of it as well. I think so anyone who's out there calling CGI the enemy, like, need to stop and think about how much CGI is fixing things and saving people's asses all the time.
Yes.
And sometimes they're not put in the best position, and it's not their fault. Anyway, the Tom Ripley TV show sounds pretty awesome.
Yes, and I saw that it does have a home now. Where is it? It's at Stars or something. But I think at the time that we recorded this, I think it was for Showtime or something. There was a lot of debate about where the show would end up.
Right, and there was a shuffle, right? With
there was a
Showtime
shuffle.
and
I think now it's at Stars.
Okay.
So.
Well, but and also, like, we didn't talk about this with Maricel, but it's written and directed by Steve Zalian, who, don't forget, it was him and De Palma who holed up in a hotel room for weeks, smoking cigarettes and eating peanuts or whatever it was, coming up with the story for the first Mission Impossible movie. So it's like we've come full circle.
We have.
Zalian and De Palma were there to, concoct the initial Ethan Hunt story, and Zalian still had credit on that first movie for that story. So anyway, I'm excited to see that Tom Ripley show. Talented Mr. Ripley is such a that movie's a fucking masterpiece. I mean,
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, and again, just a reminder of the stuff that she showed us in the Zoom, she did send to us to share with you. So check those out in our show notes. It's on our website in the episode guide under this episode, which is, I believe, episode number 226. Can you believe we've done 226 episodes, Drew?
We were so young when we started this, Charles. We're about to celebrate a monumental birthday. I feel like we had so much more pep and vigor. You've had two children in the time that we've made this show,
and I think we've both added a lot of gray hairs.
Yes,
and but you know what? A lot of wisdom too.
Oh, is that what that is? Yes. Okay, got it.
I've got special thank yous. I got to give a shout out to Stan Hairstraight and Winston Riggs. Thank you, Stan and Winston, for your support in making this episode possible. I also want to credit our editor and mixer, Luke Burson, and our music composer, Kevin Blumenfeld, and a special thank you to our intern, Amber Cohen. So, yeah, a big thank you to all of you. Please sign up for our Patreon. It's patreon.com/lightthefuse. Sign up at the bonus content level, and you can get weekly bonus episodes, which we are always recording and always delivering. It's twice the show, double the show if you sign up. And it really supports us and makes this main show on the main feed possible. So we cannot thank our Patreon subscribers enough. And you can always buy a shirt or a magnet or a pin or a sticker to support the show. That's you can buy that through our TeePublic store, which I believe is teepublic.com/users/lightthefusepod. And if that's too difficult to remember, because I barely do, you can go to our website, lightthefusepodcast.com, and it's there under the merch tab. You can see a few samples, and then you can click on a direct link to our TeePublic store there. And while you're there, also check out our show notes. What else, Drew?
I just want to encourage everybody to like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening, and to keep in touch. Follow us on social media at LightTheFusePod on Instagram and Twitter. And I want to tell everybody we got some really fun shows coming up.
Yeah, we do. It's pretty fun. Yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're keeping it a little loose before we get into part one phase of the program. So,
but I think it's some really fun people that we haven't actually recorded them yet, but they're on the books. Fingers crossed it happens, and I'm really excited to talk to these people. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, and then we're getting into it. I mean, listen, Charles, part one is just around the corner. You know what I mean?
I know. It's real close. I can feel it. I can feel it.
God, I cannot wait. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week with who's to say? Someone will be here with me and Charles, and it'll be great. We promise.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. Before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.